I'm Lida Tohidi. It's great to be here. So I've been working full-time for the last over a decade, and I've also been meditating for over a decade. And I can tell you it's definitely not a coincidence. And I know that probably all of us have felt like the person in this wonderful stock photo where, we're overwhelmed, we're multitasking, we're doing a bunch of things at the same time. We are supplementing with caffeine and chocolate and energy drinks. And what I'd love for you to get out of this session is a little bit more information about what mindfulness is, what is meditation, what's the difference, as well as hopefully helping you design a personal and effective daily practice. That's my goal. Let's see if we can get there. Before we get into the material, what I'd love is for us to start in a mindful way. And in the spirit of mindfulness, if you could put away your devices and everybody get into a comfortable position and sit straight. We'll do a few exercises together. This one is a very short one that I'll guide you through. And each breath that we'll take, it's a 3-part breathing exercise. Each breath is symbolic of a different period of time. So if you feel comfortable, feel free to close your eyes and otherwise have a soft gaze towards the floor. And take a deep and intentional first inhale and exhale. So this first breath is symbolic of the past. So it could be the recent past, it could be all of the talks, the wonderful sessions you've been to at the conference thus far. Could be you processing the week. Could be anything at all. And acknowledging that there's nothing wrong with having thoughts of the past. It's just that we can metaphorically leave them at the door. Taking a second intentional deep inhale and exhale. This second breath is symbolic of the future. So this is your planning mind. You might be thinking of maybe what's the next session you're going to, maybe your holiday plans coming up. And again, just hitting pause on those thoughts for now. And with a third deep inhale and exhale, we come to the present moment. So first off, acknowledging yourself for choosing this session and being here, and doing your best to stay present. Of course, as humans, we will inevitably get distracted, but at any time and in any moment, you can come back to the present. And now bringing your awareness outwards, back to the room. Great. So that's just a taste of what we'll do. So hopefully you enjoy that, and we'll do a few more exercises like that. Before we do, I'd like to get some definitions so that we're all on the same boat here. So what is mindfulness? So it depends on whom you ask. So if you ask me, I would say it is present moment awareness. If you ask a Buddhist monk, he might tell you, mindfulness shows us what is happening in our bodies, our emotions, our minds, and in the world. Through mindfulness, we avoid harming ourselves and others. If you ask an American practitioner, she might tell you, mindfulness is the aware, balanced acceptance of the present experience. It isn't more complicated than that. It is opening to or receiving the present moment, pleasant or unpleasant, just as it is, without either clinging to it or rejecting it. So to simplify it, basically, mindfulness is your approach to a situation or even to life. And meditation is one practice in which you can be mindful. And we'll get into this topic and explore it a bit more. Okay, so before I reveal the statistics, I'd love by a show of hands, who has ever meditated before, either alone with an app? Okay, so that's the majority of the room. So definitely selection bias on being here in the session, which is awesome. Who has a daily meditation practice? Raise your hand. Okay, minority of the room, which is expected. That's fine. So actually 8% of US adults have a regular meditation practice. And this is from the latest national study that I could find, which is from a couple of years ago. So I would even venture a guess that this number is over 20 million now. So on one hand, you could think, okay, it's a very small minority of people, but at the same time, it's definitely an increasing trend, and for good reason. So studies have shown that meditation has improved focus and sleep, and it has helped people decrease their stress response and even manage anxiety or depression. So why is it that we don't find the time, let's say, to meditate? A lot of people, they may believe in the benefits, but they may not kick in right away. And I can tell you, for me, meditating over 10 years, it's not like a light switch where after one session, you're like, oh, I'm enlightened. That's not gonna happen. So it's a journey just like anything else. Just like if you started coding yesterday, you don't expect to write a full Android app tomorrow. So that's one reason why I would say, though it's a very trendy topic, a lot of people actually don't meditate regularly. And my goal here isn't necessarily to have you all walk out of here with a regular meditation practice, but to explore it and see if the teaser is worth exploring a little bit more. So this is my personal journey with meditation over the last decade. It's been over a decade. So I lived in Japan just over 10 years ago, and that's where I got introduced to Zen meditation. So I did a temple stay, which is basically you go and you live like a monk or a nun for however long you want. I just did a weekend to start. And it means you wake up at 4 a.m., you meditate a lot, you do chores, you go to sleep at 9, or definitely by 10 p.m. you're sleeping. So that was the first style of meditation that I tried. There's a lot of Buddhist chantings and other styles of meditation as well. This is just the one I first tried. And soon I wanted to try different things and see if I would like them. So I went to a lot of group sits for visualization meditation, which actually was a lot of fun, but I think it was fun because I was daydreaming. So I wasn't necessarily getting the benefits of it. I was more like thinking of my spirit animal or whatever other exercise we were doing, which led me to Kundalini meditation, which is a lot more active. And at the time, I had just started doing yoga. This is probably just over 7 years ago. And I really liked it because it was a great pairing. And Kundalini meditation really focuses on the breath. So it really emphasizes pranayama, or the breath work. And that led me to another kind of active form of meditation, which is Qigong, which is a traditional Chinese form of meditation. And it's not too dissimilar from Tai Chi if you see it from far. And the Qi, or the life force, is definitely the focus. And I think I felt like, okay, this is not, I wanted something like I could do every day. It was simple, and I could do it sitting down, and even when I roll out of bed. So just over 6 years ago, I asked a friend who was teaching math and science at a Tibetan monastery what his recommendation was. And he said a 10-day silent meditation retreat in the Vipassana tradition. And that just means the word Vipassana is a Pali word, and Pali is an ancient language from India and that region. And it just means insight, or to see things as they are. And within the time that he told me, it was like, I think a Monday, and I was already in the 10-day silent retreat by Sunday. So I would maybe recommend you do a little more research than I did, but I definitely went in with a beginner's mind, and it was great. I just relocated back home to Canada, and it was the dead of winter. No one wanted to be doing this semi-outdoor meditation retreat. But this is essentially my regular practice right now, and I try to go every year for a silent retreat if I can. And at the end of every Vipassana meditation, even if you're doing it at home, there's a loving kindness or metta meditation. And you might be familiar with this because that's where the phrase, may all beings be free from suffering, comes from. So that's just my journey over the last 10 years in meditation, and I definitely combine a few things here and there, which you'll probably do if you end up doing this more than just today. There's also a lot of other forms of meditation that I haven't tried, like TM, transcendental meditation, or heart rhythm meditation, and a plethora of other ones that we won't have time to get to today. And I lead a lot of meditation circles or sits, and this one was a women in tech group at a WeWork, just in case you're wondering what's happening there in the background. Great, so round 2, exercise number 2 and 3. We'll do a couple of them back to back. So again, I invite you to get into a comfortable seat and close your eyes. I will read you the prompts, and we'll start. So believe it or not, it's near the end of 2018. And with this exercise, we'll do 2-part exercise. The first part, acknowledging and letting go. And the second is reflecting and celebrating. So first, think of a time where you held back or you limited yourself this year. What do you think could use improvement in your life? And what might you do differently, knowing what you know now? And now moving on to reflecting and celebrating. For what event or to whom were you most grateful for thus far? What are you most proud of achieving thus far this year? And what was a major milestone? So keeping your eyes closed, just feel into how you feel right now. What is this exercise brought on for you? And now we'll be moving from the thinking and reflecting to the sensing and feeling. So you can keep your eyes closed as I lead you through a body scan for a few minutes. Here I will give you 2 options. So you can either choose to breathe into the different body parts that I'll mention, or you can look for sensations. So a sensation can be almost anything. It could be the feeling of clothing or air on your skin. It could be feeling of tension, maybe in some areas, openness. And if you don't feel sensations in a lot of the body or it feels neutral, that's also perfectly normal. So again, option 1, breathing into the areas. Option 2, looking for any sensations. And we'll all start at the crown of the head. Moving the awareness to the forehead. Eyebrows. Eyes. Nose. Cheeks. Chin. neck. So scanning your entire face. Bringing your awareness now to your shoulders. Upper arms. Elbows. Lower arms. Hands. And all 10 fingers. Now breathing into your chest, or looking for sensations anywhere throughout your torso. Moving the awareness to your upper back. Mid back. And lower back. Doing a scan of your entire upper body. Looking for sensations. Moving on to the lower body, to the hips. Pelvis. Thighs. Back of the legs. Noticing any sensations in your knees. Lower legs. Feet. And 10 toes. And now I want you to feel into your body for an intention of how you'd like to feel for the rest of today. Whether grounded or energized, or maybe somewhere in between. And taking your time to slowly open your eyes and come back to the room. Maybe noticing the difference you felt between the two exercises we just did. Great. So, while all these exercises are well and good, I am also a very pragmatic person. I want you to come out of here with, if not one thing, multiple things. So if you remember nothing else aside from picking one of these 5 mindful minute suggestions, that would be great. And these are just 5. They're definitely not an exhaustive list of things you could do. They literally take 60 seconds or less. So hopefully that appeases people who are really busy, as am I, and I'm sure everyone here. So we'll go into each of them. So the first is mindful bites or drinks. So not every meal you're going to have is going to look as delightful as this. And you could probably tell I'm a sweet tooth and have several cavities. But what I would invite you to do is, even if it means it's the last bite of one meal a day, that you really take the time to notice the texture, the taste, and not just power through and eat it. So maybe raise your hand if you've multitasked during your lunch and you're not really sure what you ate. Okay, it wasn't just me. Great. So that's kind of the thing that I would hope you would be more mindful of. So if you even do that, which it's not going to just stop tomorrow, that's okay. But just realize that if it's important to you, you can actually take the time to start enjoying your food mindfully. And if any of you are in town, you live in San Francisco, I know the organizers running an amazing mindful eating event, and you can all be my guest for free. So maybe not all, but whoever is interested in can come. So that should be a good way to enter the mindful eating world. The second is air on your skin. So again, this works whether you're in an air-conditioned office, you're outside with open eyes, closed eyes. Just take 60 seconds or less to notice what it feels like to have air or wind on your skin. And even that will really get you in the present moment rather than just caught up in thoughts. And we'll do something else. You can keep your eyes open for this one. So this is something that I think is really simple and so powerful at the same time. So it's deep breathing, and we'll do this to a count of 4 together. I'll guide you through it. There's nothing magical or mystical about the count of 4. It's just that it's definitely deeper than we normally breathe. And you can increase this to a count of 5, 6, 7, whatever you like. And the reason why it's so powerful is that if, for example, you have a very stressful meeting, I'm sure you've noticed that it's very easy to actually carry that stress with you to the next meeting and throughout the day even. Whereas if you take some deep breaths, it's a lot more likely that you'll kick in the parasympathetic nervous system in your body and you start working through the stress response a lot faster. So it's not just for that sake, but anytime you feel like anxious or stressed, try this out, and I bet you'll notice how it does wonders in just a minute or less. So we'll do this together. What you'll do is we'll inhale for a count of 4, actually accentuate the pause by holding the breath for a count of 4, and then exhale for a count of 4. So starting inhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And doing this a few more times at your own pace. And going back to normal breathing. So again, very simple. You could do this anywhere. No one even has to know you're doing this. So it's a secret weapon. Another thing that I find very helpful is doing at least one task mindfully every day. And you can switch it up, do a different task if you get bored, or you could keep the same task. And it's really helpful if it's something that's important to you. It could be the number of times you check your phone a day. It could be the number of times you interrupt someone a day. It could be a chore you have to do every day. So for me, for example, I've tried this with washing the dishes because it was a chore I really disliked doing. And even though I have a dishwasher, there's still some process you have to go through clearing the dishes initially. So what I used to do is just multitask so much that, I would kind of I would try to forget that I'm washing the dishes, which never happened. And then what would happen is my dishes were not clean. So I took this as my mindful task, and I swear it became a lot more enjoyable because I started noticing it as an experience rather than just as a chore, because I would focus on the warm water and the dish soap on my skin and what that process was like. And you can try this with any task you like and mix it up. Another thing is also, I used to be super absent-minded because I was multitasking and doing so many things at the same time and doing a bunch of chores, and I would almost always forget stuff, places. I think I probably hold the Guinness Book of Records of number of umbrellas lost, but you can be sure that also being more mindful with doing things will mean that you are a lot more present and not absent-minded. And last but not least, for the mindful minutes, this one is kind of a tricky one because it's more than a minute a day, but you can always start out with the first minute and see how you go. So by show of hands, does anyone have a morning or evening routine? Oh, wow, that's probably like half the room. That's great. Okay, so I have a very simple morning routine, which is wake up, use the restroom, journal, meditate, eat breakfast, and then listen to the news for up to 10 minutes a day. So I'm, informed but not freaked out. And that whole routine probably it's definitely under an hour. It's something that takes definitely more than a minute. But what you can do is maybe your mindful routine starts with waking up and having a glass of water or having a glass of milk before you go to sleep. Something that kind of sets your body into, okay, this is what this means, rather than first thing I used to do years ago would be wake up, the phone's already in my hand because of the alarm, and then scroll through emails or news, which is not terrible to do. I don't make any judgment calls here, but it definitely is more of a shock to your system when you wake up, and it definitely takes you longer to sleep if that's how you're approaching your routine. And if you just have a pause before you get onto your devices, it definitely helps your body and your mind as well. Great. So, yeah, last but not least, folks want to know if they have a practice or if they start practicing meditation, how can they strengthen their practice? So there's a lot of communities, especially if you live in a city or even a big town. There's a lot of meetups for people who want to meditate together. So I would suggest those so that you have some sense of accountability. If that's a lot for you, then you can always just have an accountability partner. And that could be someone that doesn't even meditate with you. You just inform them when you have meditated, and the social proof aspect and the guilt of not doing it, I feel like works for a lot of people. And so that's something I would suggest. Another thing that definitely helps to strengthen your meditation practice is to couple it with a physical or flow activity. And it could be almost anything, like this lady is walking the labyrinth here in San Francisco. I know that for me, it definitely helps if I do yoga and meditate so I can keep both practices going. And it could be you like sailing, could be that you like just taking walks. Just integrating meditation with a physical activity sometimes helps people who find it too much to be sitting cross-legged and meditating. That's not the only way that you can meditate. You can definitely combine it with other things. Other things, if you want to kind of get more into meditation, you could do a retreat. You could start with a day and then maybe work your way up, or you could start like me with like just jumping in full into the 10-day. And then you could make your own retreat. Maybe Sundays are your day of silence or your no device day, and you can try with half a day to start with. Just see what works for you. And last but not least, if you're in San Francisco Bay Area, I teach meditation for fun a couple of times a week at Within Meditation in FIDI, so feel free to come by. And I also have office hours after this. So that is it. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so do you want the official answer or the real answer? So the question was, how long is your meditation session in the mornings? So in the Vipassana tradition, they're very strict, I would say, actually is a good word to describe it. They actually would prefer that people meditate 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. And I was a very good student, just like I've always been in life. So I did 2 hours every day for months. And then I went from 2 straight to 0. And then it was 0 for many months. So now what I try to do is 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. So it's definitely not the 2 hours, but that's what I do. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, what apps have worked for you? So I know that Calm is sponsoring the part of the conference. No. So I've enjoyed using Calm. Headspace I used to use before, so I don't know what's new. I really like Pacifica, which is probably the one that no one has heard of, but I really like it because they're in the Bay Area as well. Not only that, they incorporate cognitive behavioral therapy into the interface, CBT, so it always asks you how you feel when you start the app. And what's great is that afterwards, every week it sends you an email and it says, okay, these were the days that you felt great or okay or not good. And then you start being able to make patterns for yourself as to, oh, maybe it's really bad when I, don't eat breakfast because I've noticed every day that I don't eat breakfast, I don't feel as good. Or you start definitely finding patterns for yourself. And this is a talk not sponsored by any of these apps, but those are the 3 that I've definitely tried and that have worked for me. Books or blogs for parents, did you say? Okay. Yes, so there's a lot of people that have written about their retreat experiences. So I always I'm curious to learn from other people's, because another thing is that you're totally not allowed to compare your experiences. So it's wait, did anyone else go through the same thing I did? So that's something that if you just search around for a lot of things on Medium or people's personal blogs as to their retreat experiences. So that's something that's of personal interest to me. Another blog that I really like is 10% Happier. And that's also an app, I believe, by Dan Harris, who's very much in the tech world and also very pragmatic about how he approaches meditation. And yeah, there's a website, dhamma.org, that I also follow because that's, again, in the same vein of the meditations I've done. So those are the 3 things that come to mind right away. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So did I notice any changes in my awareness between when I meditate 2 hours a day to 30 minutes? So I can tell you I'm a very, very impatient person, usually. And the amount of patience goes up in direct proportion to how much I meditate. So that's one thing. Another thing that's really cool side benefit for me, which I think it's personal, depends on each person. But the more I meditate, especially if I meditate 2 hours a day, I will remember my dreams to a vivid clarity, which is awesome. Because actually, and you know what, it's not that surprising. Because if you think about it, our minds are a lot of the time, especially in the modern age working in tech, it's like your browsers. I would venture, I guess, everyone who is on a browser has 10 or more tabs at a time. So imagine in our minds it's the same. There's a bunch of incomplete ideas and thoughts. And if you don't close those tabs, it's almost taking up internal memory in your brain. So the more you meditate, I find it to be mental recycling. So the more I do it, then there's more space for all the other stuff. So I'm sure I'll remember more song lyrics and like names of people I've met like 20 years ago, stuff like that. So there's just more space for your brain to kind of retain the information that it has. So that's a really awesome side benefit, remembering my dreams. Yeah. Yes. Got it. So if you're 70 to 80% through your meditation and you're like, oh my God, when is this ever gonna end? So I don't know if it's comforting or not comforting, is that it's always like the last, maybe it's the Pareto principle, I don't know, like the 80-20 rule, like the last 20% is like the worst, like it's the slowest it feels like. So even if you're doing 2 hours, it always seems to be the last 20% roughly that feels the longest. So 1, you're not alone in that. 2, I would say try not to look at any device. So the good thing is there's ironically a lot of apps that will notify you in a calm and mindful way when you've finished meditating. So Insight Timer is a good one. So I will close my eyes, and even if like my mind is going everywhere, so there's a term called monkey mind, because you're essentially clinging to one thought here, you're in the past, you're in the future, you're everywhere except the present, right? Just let it do its thing. If you find that you can't come back to your focus or your anchor, which might be the breath, it might be a mantra, it might be anything, right? Just let your mind do its thing rather than opening your eyes and giving up. Because in a way, none of us are giving up on it. Any of it is just that you want to make sure, like you said, you don't feel guilty, because that's the last thing you want to associate with your practice and have your mind be like, oh, but every time I meditate, I feel guilty, so I might as well not meditate. So even if you feel like it's been a very challenging sit, sometimes those are the ones that are actually the most helpful, I find, because it just shows you that a lot of us do have very short attention spans, and the more you do it, honestly, I swear, it will become easier. So hopefully that helps. Yeah. I love the question. Is there a specific time of day to meditate so you can be maximum productive? So I guess the first thing is there should never be a goal to your meditation. And I totally empathize with you, because I also went like full in, like in my 10-day meditation retreat. By the end, I had ice packs on both knees because I was like, I will refuse to move during these 10 hours of meditation every day that I'm doing. And then the teacher was like, you need to chill out. So yes, so I would say maybe just assume you don't have any objective. The only objective, if there is any, is to just keep coming back to the present from wherever you're off in the thought world. Just keep coming back to the present. And so the best time of day, I would say for me, if you're a morning person, usually it's the morning, because if you try to do it only in the evening, right before you go to sleep, in my opinion and in my experience, I should say, I've fallen asleep like almost every single time. And that's okay, but if it happens that you wake up in the middle of the night on the couch where you're meditating and you have to go back to your bed, that's not the most conducive. So I would say if you're a morning person, morning; if you're a night owl, in the evening, and you can just do trials and experiments. Yeah. Yeah, so I run a marketing consultancy. We're a very small team. So I do promote it at work. All of us are pretty into health and wellness, but it's definitely something that I feel like is a personal experience. I know that for myself, I definitely told my mom it would be a great experience, I think, for her to do the retreat, because she's just such a mellow person that I thought she would actually enjoy it. But she's the only person I've ever, tried to encourage to do meditation or to do a retreat. So I think each of us has their own journey, and not everyone finds that meditation helps, right? So for some people, just being mindful and how they approach their day could come about without sitting and closing their eyes. So I would just say try out different exercises and see what works for you. Yeah. We're almost at time, so maybe a final question, if there is one. Great. I'm also mindful of everyone's time. So thank you so much for coming, and wish you a great end of the conference.